Greg Amyot from the Department of Public Safety. I just want to talk real quick about how to do CPR and recognize when somebody needs CPR and how to use the AED. So the first thing we're going to do, we want to make sure, obviously, even if we're not here on the pickleball courts, that the scene is safe, right? Make sure that their situation doesn't become our situation and it's safe for us to approach the victim. If it's safe for us to approach the victim, if they're not responding, we shake and shout, hey, hey, are you okay? If there's no response, we appoint somebody. We point to them and say, you go get the AED, which is located here at Veterans Park right next to the restrooms, and call 911, and we make sure that they acknowledge us. We want to make sure that we get help coming fast. The next thing we're going to do while they're going to get the AED, we're going to bare chest the victim, take their shirt off. Palm of our hand, mid-nipple line, right over the sternum. We're going to lock out our elbows and do what's called hands-only CPR. So we're just going to push hard and push fast. So we push down until we feel resistance, and we let up, allowing full chest recoil. We're going to do that non-stop. You don't have to count. There's no real algorithm to hands-only CPR. We're just going to do non-stop chest compressions. While we're here doing our great chest compressions, as the kit arrives, if we weren't able to get their shirt off, there's a pair of scissors right here in the responder kit, as you can see. There's some 4x4 gauze pads. We may need those to dry the victim's skin off when we apply the AED. So I'm just going to push hard and push fast for about 2 minutes. We want to really circulate that oxygenated blood that's within the body. After we get the AED, we're going to dry off the chest. 2 pads. The pads I'm showing you here today are for demonstration purposes only. They're infant and child pads. They're a little bit smaller than the pads that you would use for an adult victim. They have a pictogram on them. They tell you where to place the pads. So 1 pad goes on the victim's upper right side. We draw a line diagonally through their heart. The other pad goes on the ribs. And then we turn the unit on. So in this case, your AED right here at the park, as soon as we turn this unit on, it's going to walk us through the steps of how to use it. So the first step in using the AED is turning it on. It'll tell us to attach.
Remove clothes from patient's chest.
Once we do that, it'll tell us to attach the pads.
When patient's chest is bare, open gray plastic case and peel off white adhesive pads. Remove clothes from patient's chest.
We're going to turn that unit off. It'll walk us through the next steps.
When patient's chest is bare, open.
It'll walk us through the next steps. The biggest thing to remember when we use the AED, if it tells us that a shock is indicated, we're going to stop CPR, we're going to stand clear of the victim, we're going to make sure that everybody around us is clear, and then we're going to push the shock button. When the AED wants us to do something, it'll light up that button and flash. Very, very simple, easy to use. Questions?
The lower pad you want on the heart side, right?
Correct. So
okay.
the left one goes on the ribs, white on the upper right. Correct. And if by chance you mess it up, fear not, the technology inside the AED will recognize it. It has biphasic technology, so if you put the wrong pad in the wrong place, that's quite all right. It'll reverse how it delivers the energy. It's fine. So if you make a mistake, it'll recognize it. The other thing that we should note is for people who you take off their sweater, their shirt, and they still have a sweater on, there's a real cheap razor in here. You just want to make sure that their skin is very clean. We can't put it on over hair. If they have a medication patch or something like that, you want to put a pair of gloves on, which are in the responder pouch as well, and take that patch off and move it out of the way before you put the pad on.
So this is a manual, right? It's not an automatic AED, correct?
It's not a fully automatic, it's a semi-automatic.
So it'll tell you when to shock and not shock.
That is correct.
If you do not hear the word shock, whatever it says, you do not shock the person.
Correct. You're going to continue.
Even though the pads are on.
Correct. You're going to continue with your compressions. Yes.
Also, now let's say you're a little fast and you got your shirt ripped open, you got the pads on the person, and this is going on. Will it catch up to you? Or
yes.
Is it yes. Okay. So everybody knows that it catches up to you.
It'll know exactly where you are.
Where it is, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
And we're assuming that no one else is touching that person on the floor while you're doing AED?
Correct.
Holding
yes,
hands.
you want to make sure that you're not making contact with the victim.
So let's say it's a little wet, it's a little rainy day. What do we do now?
So you can dry their skin off with the gauze pads that we have here. If you can dry the area where they are, great. If you can put something between them and the wet surface, fine. If there's no other options, I would say try and use the AED first and just stand clear of the victim.
How about your own personal safety? If
The energy
ground is wet,
could be
you're kneeling
transferred.
down.
That's correct. Yes. So you should stand as far back as you can from the victim.
Okay. Put something under your knees. Is
Yep.
another way
Yep.
to do
Or
it
just
too.
just stand back with the unit as far back as the cord will go. You know, so that you're not in the water.
Right.
So you can move the unit, okay.
You can absolutely.
But it
Yes.
can be wet. The ground can be wet. I mean, it's just not. You don't want to be standing in water. You don't want the victim in a puddle of water and you're in the same water.
Think about like a pool deck. You could
Yeah.
do that, but you want to try and put something between
Right.
them and the water.
What are you expecting after the shock?
So the victim may or
A kiss.
may not regain consciousness, and if they do not, you're going to continue CPR until help arrives.
How many shocks are you allowed to give them?
As many as the unit will allow.
All right.
Just keep going through your cycles. It'll do
Alright.
about a 2-minute countdown in between shocks.
Right.
Great question.
So you also have there. You said those are child or infant pads,
There's
right?
child and infant pads in the back. These are child and infant pads that we're using today, and this unit has a child and infant key here, so you can use this as well.
So when we open that box up, will there be pads attached to it?
There are. This is your actual AED. The pads are right inside here.
Okay, and those are adult ones,
They're
correct?
set to go for adult. Correct.
Right. Okay, and it's all hooked up, pre-hooked up.
Pre-hooked up, pre-plugged in, ready to go. You just have to put the pads on.
Right.
You mentioned it was a razor. You use that to shave someone's got a very heavy chest? Or-
That's correct. Yep. Only where the pad is going to go, right here.
Put it like a
Take their shirt